Dear students, welcome to all of you. Today we are here to discuss cork cambium and periderm. First, the structure of the cork cambium. The cork cambium or phallogen is a tissue found in many vascular plants as part of the periderm. The cork cambium is a lateral meristem as it is responsible for increase in thickness of the stem. It is secondary in origin as it arises from the primary tissues. It is secondary in function because it gives rise to secondary tissues like cork and secondary cortex. Thus, it is a secondary meristem. The cork cambium is found in woody and many herbaceous dicots, gymnosperms, and some monocots which usually lack secondary growth. The cork cambium is usually differentiated in the outer layers of the cortex, in parenchyma or in collenchyma. In some plants like Malus, Solanum, Coarcus, it is differentiated in the epidermis. In Vitis, Punica, Berberis, it is differentiated in the phloem tissue. The cork cambium cuts more cells on the outer side and a few cells on the inner side. The outer cells get suberized and form the cork or phellum. The inner cells remain parenchymatous and thus form the secondary cortex or phalloderm. Histologically, the cork cambium is relatively simple than the vascular cambium as it is composed of only one type of cells. The cells of cork cambium are rectangular in cross section with their shorter axes in the radial direction, and in longitudinal tangential section they are seen to be regular polygons. The protoplasts of the cork cambium cells contain variously sized vacuoles and they may contain chloroplasts and tannins. There are no intercellular spaces in the cork cambium except in those regions where lenticels develop. Growth and development of cork cambium is very variable between different species and also highly dependent on age, growth conditions, etc. In the formation of cork cambium layers, mature living cells become meristematic and form a continuous uniseriate layer of initials. This meristematic activity always occurs in epidermal, cortical or other parenchymatous tissue where living cells are sufficiently abundant to permit the formation of a layer of considerable vertical and tangential extent. When the formation of a cork cambium is about to take place in epidermal cells, the protoplasts lose their central vacuoles and the cytoplasm increases in amount and becomes more richly granular. The starch and tannins are gradually lost from these cells that contained them. After the formation of this initial layer, tangential and to a lesser extent radial division takes place much in the same manner as does division in the true cambium. The derivative cells are normally arranged in radial rows, the cells of the phalloderm being less marked than those of the phellum. The development of first phallogen may take place in different cell layers external to the vascular cambium. In many stems, for example Solanum dulcamara, Coarcus suber, Malus pumila, Pyrus cuminus, and Nerium oleander, the first phallogen is formed in the epidermis itself. More commonly, the first phallogen develops in the layer of cells immediately below the epidermis. Such development can be seen in Populus, Juglannus, and Ulmus, among others. In the potato tuber, the phallogen develops in the epidermis as well as in the subepidermal cell layer, but the phallogen formed in the epidermis does not continue to function after its formation. In the stems of certain plants, for example Robinia, species of Aristolochia and Pinus, The first phellogen forms in the second or third cortical layer. In Thuja, Punica, Arbutus, Vitis, and Anabasis, the cambium of the first formed periderm develops near the phloem or in the phloem parenchyma itself. In roots of gymnosperms and dicotyledonous, the first phellogen is characteristically formed in inner layers, usually in the pericycle. In the roots of monocotyledonous, the first phellogen usually develops in the outer layers of the cortex. In some plants of Rosaceae, Myrtaceae, etc., a special phellogen is formed in the pericycle of the underground stems or roots. This coracambium cuts on the outer face thin-walled cells and endodermis-like cells. The Casparian strips are also seen in these endodermis-like cells, which later on become suberized. Such a composite type of tissue is called as polyderm. The site of phellogen initiation was shown to be affected by climatic conditions as well as by various growth substances. High humidity and a continuous flush of oxygen were found to cause early initiation of the phellogen. Light, temperature changes or mechanical pressure did not play an important role in the initiation of phellogen as long as they were applied under dry conditions. Dear students, this was all about coracambium. Now we will discuss the structure of the periderm. The periderm is a protective tissue of secondary origin which replaces the epidermis when the latter is destroyed as the axis increases in girth by extensive secondary growth. It is commonly found in roots and stems of woody dicotyledonous and gymnosperms. Some monocotyledonous may also form periderm, although mostly they have secondary protective tissues of a different kind. Periderm also develops in places which are exposed due to leaf or branch abscission and around injured or dead tissues resulting from wounding or by disease. The development of the periderm sometimes commences only after the production of the secondary vascular tissues has reached considerable dimensions. In such cases, the circumference of the epidermis increases together with the secondary and other tissues on the outer side of the cambium. Examples of trees with the above type of development are Laurus, Citrus, Cornus, some species of Eucalyptus, Acer, and Acacia. In Viscum, for example, cork tissue is never formed and the epidermis, the cell walls of which thicken, increases in circumference and persists on the stem throughout the life of the plant. Periderm appears on the surface of roots and stems and their branches in gymnosperms and woody dicotyledonous that undergo a continuous pronounced increase in thickness by secondary growth. Periderm occurs also in herbaceous dicotyledonous, in which it is sometimes limited to the oldest parts of stem and root. Monocotyledonous rarely develop a protective tissue comparable to the periderm of dicotyledonous. Foliar organs normally produce no cork, but scales of winter buds in some gymnosperms and dicotyledonous are an exception. In stems of extant vascular cryptogams, which as a rule lack secondary growth, no periderm is formed even in species that eventually cast off the epidermis and part of the cortex. In underground stems of some vascular cryptogams, the epidermis or the outer cortical layers become suberized. Structurally, the periderm consists of three layers of tissues. Number one, The initiating layer of meristematic cells known as the phellogen or coracambium. Number 2, the layer of cells formed by this meristem towards the outside called the phellem or corac, and number 3, phelloderm, which is a layer formed towards the inside. Dear students, we have already discussed the phellogen or coracambium. Now we will discuss the phellem and the phelloderm. First, the phellem. The cells constituting phellem, commonly known as corac cells, are like the coracambium cells from which they are cut off. They are usually polygonal in shape as seen in tangential section, and in cross section they are flattened radially. In cross section, the corac cells are usually seen to be arranged in compact radial rows which are devoid of intercellular spaces. This radial arrangement indicates that the phellogen cells divide tangentially. The cells of the phellem or corac are dead at maturity. They are characterized by suberin deposits on the walls. Suberin occurs as a distinct lamella deposit over primary cellulose walls. Electron microscopic studies have revealed that the suberin lamina is layered. The thickness of the walls of corac cells varies. In thick-walled cells, a thin cellulose layer, which is sometimes lignified, is present on the inside of the suberin lamella. The corac cells are usually prismatic in shape and are arranged compactly in radial rows. Sometimes non-suberized cells known as phelloids also occur in the corac. In betula, alternating layers of suberized and non-suberized cells are present, and because of this the corac peels like sheet of paper. In some plants, crystal containing cells and sclerids may also be present in the corac. The primary wall of the phellem cells consists of cellulose and may sometimes also contain lignin or suberin. Internally, the primary wall is lined by a relatively thick layer of suberin, the suberin layer, which consists of fine alternating lamellae of suberin and wax. In the process of suberin production, the endoplasmic reticulum apparently plays a major role. A thin cellulose layer, which in certain plants may be lignified, may be present on the inside of this lamella. This layer is mostly absent in the bottle corac of Coarcus suber. Ultra-thin pores are found in the wall of the bottle corac cells. These develop from plasmodesmata and become blocked by a dense material. The suberin layer is impermeable to water and gases, and it withstands the action of acids. The protoplast of the phellem cells is lost after the various wall layers have been formed and the cell lumen becomes filled with air or the pigmented substances. Skohar and Ziegler in 1980 showed that in betula, the middle lamellae and primary walls of the phellem are at the most only partly suberized. According to these authors, this feature explains that the betula periderm is quite permeable to water. In the phellem of some plants, for example, species of Haloxylon and Anobasis, bands or large groups of hollow, thick-walled cells occur among the usual thin-walled corac cells. These cells have a lignified primary wall and a thick outer layer of secondary wall, on the inside of which is a relatively thin suberin lamella. This suberin lamella in turn is lined by a thin cellulose layer which may sometimes be lignified. The corac tissue of certain plants, such as that of Coarcus suber, for example, is very elastic, but the cork of most plants lacks this quality. Now, the phyloderm. The cells of phyloderm or secondary cortex are living cells with non-suberized cellulose walls which have simple pits. They contain protoplast like the parenchyma cells of the primary cortex, but if phyloderm is multiseriate, they are usually arranged in radial rows. Chloroplasts may also be present in the cells of phyloderm of some plants, and then they function in photosynthesis and storage of starch. They are loosely arranged like the cells of the primary cortex, but they form more or less definite radial rows. Sometimes sclerids and other specialized cells are also present in the phyloderm. The term secondary cortex is sometimes applied to phyloderm, but it is more often applied to periderm as a whole. The basis for the later use is that as a protective layer it is a cortex in the physiological sense. Since the periderm commonly develops secondarily in phloem, the term cortex cannot logically be applied to it. The use of the term secondary cortex in either use is clearly inaccurate and undesirable. Now, we will discuss the lenticels. In the periderm of nearly all plants, there are restricted areas of relatively loosely arranged cells, suberized or non-suberized. These areas, termed as lenticels, are thicker radially than the rest of the periderm layer because of their loose arrangement, the larger size and possibly greater number of cells. Lenticels, from the Latin lentis, that is a lentil, have received their name because of the lenticular shape they commonly assume. Because of the continuity of the intercellular spaces of the lenticels and those of the inner tissues of the axial organs, it is assumed that function of the lenticels is connected with gas exchange similar to that of the stomata. The lenticels are conspicuous on twigs and on other smooth surfaced organs as more or less raised, often somewhat corky spots where underlying tissues break through the epidermis. They are of almost universal occurrence on the stems of woody plants. Lenticels are also found on many roots. The large lenticels of Morus alba are conspicuous features of the orange colored surface. The so-called dots on the apples and plums are familiar examples of lenticels on fruit. Dear students, now we will discuss the duration of the periderm. With the continuation of the process of secondary thickening, the periderm themselves are replaced from time to time by new epidermis which are formed each time deeper in the living tissues of the axis. Therefore, it is necessary to distinguish between the first periderm and those that are formed later. The length of time that the first formed periderm layers persist as functioning tissues varies greatly in trees with smooth bark. For example, Fagus, Carpinus and Betula. The original periderm may persist for a great many years or for the life of the tree. In these plants, the increase in circumference of the periderm is accomplished by the radial division and subsequent enlargement of the phloem cells. In the majority of woody plants, however, the first formed periderm layer is replaced sooner or later by other periderm layers which arise successively deeper and deeper in the cortical and ultimately in the phloem tissues. These later formed phloem layers are active for only a brief period of time, Their component cells then mature to form cork cells. In vitis, the successive periderm layers of the first few years are complete cylinders, and the outer cylinder is ruptured or sloughed away immediately, so that one or two layers of phloem are present in the younger stems. In plants in which a given periderm layer is active for only a brief period, there is no seasonal regularity of activity. On the other hand, in species with persistent superficial periderm layers, for example, species of Betula, Prunus, and the Coracoccus, for example, Coarcus suber and Coarcus occidentalis, there is seasonal variation in type of phloem cells formed by the cork cambium, with the resultant formation of rather conspicuous bands of layers of cork, which probably represent enamel rings. This condition is readily visible in bottle cork, where the layers resemble the enamel rings of xylem. In Betula also, the layering is prominent. Now, the functions of periderm. The principal function of the periderm is protection of the underlying tissues from drying out, affected by maintenance of corky and suberized layers. Cork layers, when of considerable thickness, may also afford a certain amount of protection against mechanical injury to the tissues beneath. In addition to these functions, the periderm layers serve for the protection of various specialized structures or plant parts. Thus, in fruits and tubers, a periderm layer frequently takes the place of a heavily cutinized or cuticularized epidermis, as in the russet apple and the common potato. In some tropical fruits, for example, the sapodilla, that is Acherus zapota, or the support, that is Calocarpum mimosum, surface cork layers are well developed and give the fruit a grey brown, somewhat rough appearance. The cork layers also occur on the dorsal side of bud scales of many woody plants and as wings or ridges on many dry fruits. They also occur rarely on leaves, as on the petioles of some species of ficus. Now we will light upon the economic importance of cork. Most commercial cork is derived from the bark of the cork oak, that is Coarcus suber. Here, the first phloem in the stem arises in the epidermis. This phloem persists on the plant indefinitely, but when the tree is about 20 years old, that is approximately 40 cm in circumference, the first formed periderm, known as virgin cork, is removed. Then a new layer of phloem is formed deeper in the cortex, which forms cork more rapidly. This cork is removed after about 10 years, when it is sufficiently thick to be of commercial value. Subsequently, strippings are made at intervals of about 10 years until the tree has attained the age of 150 years or more. Cork has thin-walled cells with lumen filled with air. The thin top sheets of cork from the canobirch, that is Betula papyrifera and related species, were important in the North American Indian civilization but are little used today. The properties which make commercial cork valuable are its imperviousness to liquids and gases, its lightness, toughness, resistance to pressure, thermal insulating qualities, and elasticity. Cork has many uses, including wine bottle stoppers, bulletin boards, coasters, hot pads to protect tables from hot pans, insulation, ceiling for lids, flooring, gaskets for engines, fishing bobbers, handles for fishing rods, and tennis rackets, etc. It is also a high strength to weight, cost ablative material for aerodynamic prototypes in wind tunnels, as well as satellite launch vehicle payload fairings, re-entry surfaces, and compression joints in thrust vectored solid rocket motor nozzles. Many types of bark are used as mulch. With this, we conclude today's lecture. Thank you very much. God bless you.